Space, the final frontier. This is the Observer's Notebook, the official podcast of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. Its mission to explore the solar system, to seek out new observations and data, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before. And now the host of the Observer's Notebook, Tim Robertson.
Welcome to episode 151 of the Observer's Notebook, the official podcast of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. I'm Tim Robertson, the host of the podcast and also the coordinator of the training program within the ALPO. Thanks for downloading and listening. The Association of Lunar and Planetaries collects and analyzes observations of various solar system bodies and associated phenomenon, and publishes detailed reports concerning these bodies in its quarterly publication, the Journal of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers, also known as the Strolling Astronomer. This podcast depends upon you, our listeners, to keep it alive. Enjoy what you hear in the podcast. You can donate to it via Patreon. You can start by giving as little as $1 a month. If you feel even more generous, for $5 you receive early access to the podcast before it goes public. For a motion of $10 you receive a copy of the Novice Observer's Handbook. And for $35 a month you receive producer credits on the podcast. You can find out more at www.patreon, that's patreon.com/observersnotebook. If you'd like to join the ALPO, membership begins at only $18 a year. For more information, you can find us at www.alpo-astronomy.org. And you can also find the ALPO on Facebook. Just search for ALPO Astronomy. And yes, this podcast also has its own Facebook page as well. Just search for Observer's Notebook. And if you enjoy what you hear in the podcast, please subscribe. That way you'll never miss another episode. And now, episode 151 of the podcast. And we're talking eclipses. Enjoy. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody back to this edition of the Observer's Notebook. This is episode 151, and we're very happy to have with us again the Eclipse Section coordinator of the ALPO, Keith Spring. Welcome to the podcast, Keith.
Hi, Tim. Glad to be back. I think this is my fourth time now on the podcast.
You're becoming a regular.
Well, I must be doing something right.
There you go. Now, you're the Eclipse coordinator, so why don't you just give everybody a little bit of background about yourself before we get into it?
All right. My name is Keith Spring. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm the coordinator for the ALPO Eclipse Section. My background and interests are mostly in lunar eclipses. I've done quite a bit of work with those. I started observing lunar eclipses in 2004. This was mostly a fluke event, but since the first lunar eclipse, I can't get enough eclipses.
Yeah.
And, yep. I'm going towards astrophysics and having a great time with eclipses.
Great. Now, we're specifically going to talk about two, but I want to talk about some future ones in a little bit. But the first eclipse is happening October 25th.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell us about that one.
Well, this one goes over Europe. It's a partial solar eclipse. So this isn't a lunar eclipse, and it's not a total solar eclipse either, but it is worth seeing. It's an 86% partial solar eclipse. What's interesting about this is there aren't any other partial solar eclipses for the next 8 or 10 years. They're all total solar eclipses or annular solar eclipses.
That's pretty unusual, isn't it?
It is, from what I've seen. It's pretty unusual. Annual partial solar eclipses do tend to be a little bit less common, but this long stretch with only the one partial solar eclipse is pretty unique. So if you're in Europe, by all means, please image this. We won't get another one for about 10 years. It happens at exactly 11 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, GMT. And if you're in Europe, I'm sure you can convert that a little bit. If you're in England, that's the right time then.
Okay, now with total eclipses, they have a path that they follow, a very narrow path, and everything outside that path is partial. So with this, is there a path?
The partial does have a path, but it's about as wide as a normal total solar eclipse partial section.
Okay.
It's very wide. It goes from the middle of Spain all the way into Siberia.
Oh my.
So if you're in North Africa, Eastern Spain, anywhere in Europe, this should be very visible. Okay. Make sure you use safety glasses for this. Eclipse glasses, it's not a total. It's only 86%, but that 14% will still get your eyes and equipment.
Mm-hmm. No. Okay.
This is going to be a good one. This should be a good one. Unlike totals, partial solar eclipses, you don't have to worry about that few minutes of timing. You can take your time for the few hours that it's going, and try to get some hydrogen alpha images, in profile shots with some trees. If that's I don't know if that's too possible, but I do see pictures of birds or airplanes in front of eclipses quite a bit. Those are always nice.
Okay, and you want everybody that is in Europe or whoever's able to observe this eclipse send you obviously their images or observations, right?
Of course, more data is better. I always stand by the idea that every image should be collected, and I need to get with the ALPO online section here and get all of the images on the new website. That's something I've been planning to do here.
Yeah, we are revamping the 1985 website for the ALPO currently, and I've been involved with a lot of that, and it's pretty awesome what we're going to have. We're going to drop down menus and all sorts of fun things in it. And
I've really been looking forward to that.
Yeah, so have I've been asking for it for years, and it's an all volunteer thing, so it's not happening as quickly as everybody wants, but it's getting done. It's getting done.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, great. And then anything else on the solar eclipse before we move on?
Send in your images, and I look forward to seeing them.
Okay. Then in November, I think the 7th, we have a total lunar eclipse.
Yes. November 7th and 8th is a total lunar eclipse. It's very visible on the west coast of the U.S.
Yay.
Not as great for me over here. I'll need to be up at 6 a.m. for this one. But, well, I mean, I'm up late anyway. It's not that much of a stretch. But it's also visible over into bits of Australia and Japan and eastern China. So any observers over there should be able to see it. And it's very visible in the U.S. The entirety of the eclipse is visible in California.
Good.
Yes.
Good. Now, the last lunar eclipse we had earlier this year, right?
Yes.
It was extremely dark.
Yes, it was very dark. I was getting reports of Danjin 2.
Yeah.
From me here, I was mostly clouded out, but I did get to use binoculars to observe it. I'd say it was somewhere between a 1 and a 2. It was extremely dark. It was really nice, though.
It was.
Nice.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I had my telescope out and I had cameras set up, and I had neighbors walking by, and they saw him pointing in the sky. What are you looking at? I'm looking at the moon. And they looked up. I don't see the moon. I said, look, see that little black dot over there? Oh my God, that's the moon. Yeah. So it was kind of neat.
People always talk about, lunar eclipse is when the moon goes away in the sky, and then I see, I hear from people that saw their first lunar eclipse, and they're sort of disappointed. They say, "Hey, the moon was still there; it just turned red." This one, though, this was pretty close to gone.
Yeah, it was.
It's pretty close.
Yeah, I actually had to keep an eye on it to make sure I knew where it was at. I mean,
yes,
it was wild.
Yes, great. It was very dark. It was a very nice one, and this November 8th one hopefully will be pretty dark as well. It has an umbral magnitude of 1.35, so it's getting pretty close. It's getting pretty close to center.
Okay.
And for Pacific time, that is exactly 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, good.
3 o'clock 22 seconds to be more exact for the greatest eclipse. But who keeps track of the seconds?
Right. Right. So what type of observations would you like to receive for this total lunar eclipse?
As many as you can. And this brings up another topic that I've been working with and that I actually want to write an article about in the ALPO journal. Don't hold me to that. I'm trying. But I want to write an article about what kind of equipment is best for different events. And lunar eclipses fall in a kind of a gray area, in my opinion, with observing. You need equipment that is simple enough that you can guarantee that it'll work, because you don't get a chance tomorrow. It's there and then it's gone. But at the same time, you also need larger equipment to observe it. And what I generally settle on is, I have several scopes. I have a large Cassegrain scope, and I have a apochromatic refractor. I try to set up the Cassegrain, but oftentimes I don't know if this is just me living in Florida having 80% humidity, but I mean, it's 80% or worse. It's 80% at best. But
right.
I have had nonstop problems with Cassegrain scopes, and it's all because of humidity.
In what way? Just focusing, or?
Well, fogging issues. For the 2019 eclipse, I took out my Cassegrain and I set it there 4 hours before the partial part of the eclipse began, and it was about 8 hours, 6 or 8 hours before the total part. When totality started, I still had dew on the front of the scope and some on the inside of it, and I have a real love-hate relationship with my Cassegrain scope. It's a great scope. It's beautiful when it works, but the fogging is so bad.
Luckily, out here in Southern California, I've never, ever experienced anything like that. We've had some pretty humid days lately, too.
Well, every lens I have is nitrogen purged, and it's for a good reason.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a good idea.
You really need it.
Yeah, I know with lunar eclipses, when I take photographs of them, and the nice thing is, they last a long time.
They do.
You're in totality for, 30, 40 minutes sometimes. And what you're not able to do on a total solar eclipse is bracket your exposures.
Right.
And that's what I did in this last one, because it was so dark. I had no clue what my exposure times would be. So I took, 3 images at, 1 second, 3 at 2 seconds, 3 at a half a second, and just tried to figure out. And they all gave me different views of the moon too, which was nice to see the variety in that. So that's always something I would recommend someone doing it. And I just use a 300 millimeter lens on a DSLR camera.
Yeah.
And, you don't need magnification. You're not doing observing of the lunar eclipse.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people get very zoomed in images of the lunar eclipse. A lot of people do that. High power, high magnification. I've seen some people taking pictures of individual craters during the lunar eclipse, and that's wonderful. But I don't see very many in profile shots of the lunar eclipse. I actually pulled up the picture you sent in here. Getting a nice picture of the lunar eclipse with other stars is very helpful. Especially with other objects like trees.
Yeah, I think I have a palm tree in a photograph I sent you.
Maybe. Not sure what that is. Kind of looks like I don't know.
Okay. I don't have it in front of me, but yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. So what else with lunar eclipses before we get on to future?
All right. Also, for solar eclipses, I generally lean towards about a 600 millimeter lens. 3 600 millimeter lenses for those are better. They're a lot brighter and easier to observe with DSLRs. Lunar eclipses are, again, in that gray area where you need to be quick enough and you need to set up simple enough to take a picture of them. And if it's going on for a few hours and there are passing clouds, at least for me, I need to be able to come in and out of the house multiple times to observe it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something I would like to know from all the observers watching down in the comments, if you do have those enabled.
Yep.
I would like to know, how long does it take to set up your viewing system? For normal observing, it takes me a little over an hour because I make sure I get good calibration on my mount. I get my big scope, sometimes several hours because I have to warm up my scope and defog it outside. For lunar observing, I make sure that my setup is under an hour. I do that so that if I need to move location, I can do that, or if I just need to come back inside and then go back out later, I can do that. But for solar eclipses, I try to keep the setup time under 10 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
And I do that because you need to move so much.
Right, that's true.
And I guess that brings us on to the annular and solar eclipses in 2023 and 2024.
Definitely.
Yeah,
let's talk about 2023's annular eclipse.
Yes, 2023's annular eclipse. It's going to be interesting. It's
and just for clarification, annular doesn't mean it happens every year.
No.
It's like a total solar eclipse. The moon and the sun appear to be the same diameter, and the moon completely covers the sun. Annular eclipse, the moon is smaller than the diameter of the sun, so you get a ring basically of sunlight around the outside.
Yes. Annular solar eclipse is on October 14th, 2023, so a bit over a year, or about a year, I guess, from when this is being released, I guess. It's going to be 95.2%.
Mm-hmm.
And you still need solar lenses, you still need eclipse glasses to observe this. But all the same rules apply for the total solar eclipse. Yeah, you want to get to the center line, or at least as close as you can. For me, I'm going to get on the Interstate 10. I'm going to drive up to the interstate and head as far out towards Texas as I can.
Okay.
I might not be able to make it quite to the center, but I'll get a decent eclipse.
Yeah, I'm heading to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and when I booked the date, everything was really expensive. I couldn't figure out why. Well, that date is in the middle of the Albuquerque Balloon Festival.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, and I've always wanted to go to that.
Wow.
So I'm killing two birds at once. We're going to have these balloons in the sky and then a solar eclipse at the same time. So now I just gave away my secret where I'm going to be. But try booking a hotel now, folks, because it's going to be near impossible, because that's a major, major event in the U.S.
So you're going to have an in-profile shot with balloons in the foreground.
That's my plan. That's my plan.
That'd be pretty neat.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could get reflections off of the balloons as they're going up in the sky. What is a balloon festival anyway? Actually,
it's hot. It's thousands of hot air balloons.
Oh, hot air balloons! I was imagining just millions of little balloons.
Oh no! It's not. Yeah, a bunch of Mylar balloons going. No, it's thousands of hot air balloons. And this event goes for like 4 or 5 days every year. So
that's pretty neat.
Yeah,
that's pretty neat. Yeah, being in the center of the the path would be great. It's not absolutely required for an annular solar eclipse, but it definitely helps.
Can we talk about the path? Where does it start? Some major cities it goes through, type of thing?
Yes, it starts in the central western U.S. and it goes down, pretty much exits bottom of Texas, then goes over Central America and then over Brazil.
Okay.
So if you're in the Midwest of the U.S. or in Central America, it should be pretty decently easy to get to. For me, I'm just going to get on the nearest interstate and head, as far over towards the center line as I can get.
Okay.
As far as I can manage. I don't know if I can make it to the center line, but I'm going to get pretty close.
Okay, I'll add charts showing the path of the eclipse
That would help.
in the show notes too, so everyone can see it. But we will definitely get together again next year
Yes.
prior to this eclipse and have a more in-depth conversation about where everything's going to be lining up and stuff.
Yes, it's pretty tough to explain where a line is going on a globe without a picture, but but if you put a picture on the screen, that would help a ton.
I'll do that.
But central western U.S. down through the bottom of Texas, across the Gulf of Mexico, over the central U.S., and then off over Brazil.
Okay.
So it's very nice backwards S shape. Very even, actually.
Yeah. Now, how long does the actual annular phase last?
Actual annular phase. Let's see here. It's a few minutes. I believe it's. How long was this? Yeah, it's about 5-6 minutes.
Okay.
Let's say 5 or 6 minutes here.
Okay.
It's a bit longer than
a total.
Yeah, longer than a total.
Yeah, because the moon's passing all the way across, and yeah, it's okay.
Right.
Yeah, I've seen one annular eclipse. It was a few years back.
Yeah, it's quite a bit longer than a total. I'd say between annular eclipses are generally 3 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
They're longer, but you still need to be ready with your equipment, and above all else, be ready to move if you really need to because of weather.
Mm-hmm.
In 2017, I set up in such a way that I was in a small town off the road, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. But I set it up so that if I needed to, get on the road and had half an hour in either direction. Could have gone up into the mountains or farther. I was in Tennessee.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's a total eclipse.
That was the 2017 was a total solar eclipse. But that is one of the main things I think you should always plan for with solar eclipses is not just where you're going, but where you could go.
Yeah, and it's not too late or too early to start planning where you're going to be too. I mean, it's from my experiences in the 2017 eclipse, I was up in Oregon and I paid $500 for a parking spot in a dirt field for a day. Yeah. And and hotels in the areas along Poshedly are, pardon the pun, but astronomical in prices.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are booking up now. In fact, for the 2024 eclipse, total eclipse, I'm an RVer, so I'm camping for that one, and I booked the campsite 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And when I booked it, it was $80 a site, and I got friends of mine that just booked it last week, and they upped it to $125 a day.
Oof.
So it's happening already, and that's in Fredericksburg, Texas, where I'll be.
Yes, I'm going. Again, I still haven't. I have several locations. Mm-hmm. I make plans and backup plans for these. I'm leaning towards Arkansas.
Are you?
Nice. It's a nice central area. I should be able to get there pretty easily. Weather's decent, so that's what I'm planning for. Should get a few minutes of the eclipse.
Good.
I need to get a better lens though for that. A better lens or maybe a small telescope. And something else I noticed during the 2017 eclipse is autofocus works during the total solar eclipse. And it works during annular eclipses in the partial phase. Which I didn't expect, but I was testing that the day before and while the eclipse had started. And it actually helps a lot.
Yeah. Because you got the sharp edge of the moon cutting across the disk, yeah.
Right.
So that's something to focus.
You have the sharp edge of the moon on the disk, and even just on an unobscured solar disk, it can still autofocus on that.
Okay.
And I found that extremely helpful because in the moment when you're trying to observe, there's so much going on, you have this 3-5 minutes, this very short window of time, and everything is happening all at once. The last thing you need to worry about is, oh no, I turned my focus ring a millimeter too far. Right? So, I don't know. In my local astronomer community, they don't really take too kindly to observing with lenses and the DSLR. But I think for solar eclipses, with how quickly you need to react, autofocus definitely helps.
That's true. That's true. Okay, now we've jumped ahead to the total solar eclipse in 2024. You want to tell everybody when that is and approximately the path for that too? I did.
I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, but the total solar eclipse in 2024 is on April 8th. Starts in the center of Mexico, goes straight up through the middle of the U.S., straight through Texas, exits out towards Maine, straight through America, totality the whole way.
Yeah, I think it goes into Montreal too, and
yes, it's a bit up into Canada. But I think it goes over Prince Edward's Island, Canada. Yeah, I believe it does. Then it goes off into the ocean.
Yeah, this is going to rival the 2017 eclipse in the number of people that are able to see it.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's
definitely.
And plan now. Like I said, though, plan now. Look at the path. Figure out where you want to be, and start calling and see if you can get reservations someplace, because they are booking right now.
Yes, and something I would recommend is try to pick a town next to a big town. Try to be a little bit off the beaten path. That worked well for me. And I think if you find a smaller town, something with like a bed and breakfast, that's what I did back in 2017. Those places tend to fill up a little bit later, but it's still hard to get. Get a spot.
It's hard, yeah. And this Fredericksburg is a great little town in Texas. I've never been there, but I've done a lot of research on it since I booked it. And there's like 18 wineries within walking distance, so I'll be in heaven.
Yeah.
Great.
It's gonna be a nice eclipse.
Yeah.
And the annular eclipse of October 14th, 2023, and the total solar eclipse of April 8th, 2024, they overlap each other in Texas.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's true. Yeah,
so really do.
If you live, I think it's near Dallas or something like that. Yeah, it's in that area.
Yep. And ALPO Solar Section, Richard Hill made a nice article about the one spot two eclipses. And it'd be worth giving to read. I believe he put it up on the. I think he put it on the Twitter for the solar section.
Okay,
I thought it was excellent.
Okay, I'll have to look that up.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah. And yes.
Okay, and unlike lunar eclipses, you don't need any special glasses and things like that. But solar eclipses, you want to wear the protective glasses and whatever else you need during all the partial phases. Yes,
during all of the partial phases and the annular eclipse, you need solar glasses. But those brief, 4 minutes and 20 seconds or so for the April 8th total solar eclipse, you can take your glasses off and look at it then. But make sure you put the glasses on quickly.
Right.
Quick side note, though, on April 20th, 2023, there's a hybrid eclipse going over almost over Australia. I find that pretty interesting. It starts out as an annular, turns into a total in the center, and then goes back to being an annular eclipse. That one might be something interesting. If there's anyone over in Australia, it's mostly a partial. If you're in the islands above Australia, I'm not sure what all the countries are, But if you're near Australia, you're around Australia, you'll definitely get a nice partial phase there also on April 20th, 2023. So that's coming up too. It's worth a mention.
All right.
And yes, I would like to know what everybody's eclipse setups are, and more importantly, how long does it take to set up your viewing rig?
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, and if you could move it last minute, because I have had to do that.
Yes, I keep my eclipse equipment very light.
Yes,
it's not because you really don't have to worry about polar aligning or things like that. It's just the object's bright enough in the sky you can find it.
Right. I generally just get a tripod for my camera, or just use an old azimuth mount. Just anything to give something to lean against, but trying to polar align in the middle of the day is not easy.
It's not easy. No.
I gave up halfway through it. The day before the 2017 total solar eclipse, I was trying. I was gonna do the polar alignment and the whole, high powered eclipse viewing, but I tried and I realized there's too many things to go wrong.
Right.
There's just too many mistakes that could happen, and just one little thing going wrong, the motor skipping a step and losing alignment, the camera coming loose, the focuser moving out, something could happen, and that always gets to me.
Yeah, and there's a number of different ways you can record the eclipse. I mean, for the 2017, I took a GoPro camera and I put it on top of my car, and I just had it film for 20 minutes, and it's pretty cool because it shows the whole horizon changing and everything like that. And you can see the shadow coming across, and then when the sun comes back out again, it's an interesting way to experience it, and gives you a real out of body experience of what it's like to see an eclipse.
Exactly. And when I say use simpler equipment, that doesn't mean avoid your big equipment. It means also use small equipment.
Yeah.
So, I take big scopes and little scopes, and depending on the day, depending on what's happening, if the large equipment has a failure or something, I have a fallback. And making plans and backup plans is certainly it's a necessary step for eclipses. You can't get away from it. You need to find a backup location. You need backup equipment. You need backup batteries. I have 3 batteries for my camera just in case. I can always keep one charging, one in the camera, and one next to the camera.
Eclipses are those types of events you have to plan for.
Right.
You have to plan. You have to practice.
Right. You have your Galaxy and Nebula observers. Those are there every year. If you miss it this year, you can come back next year. You miss it today, you can go out tomorrow. And for those, get your big scope, set up your big scope, take pictures with your big scope. But then you have planetary observing, where you have a smaller window, but it's still there. And comets, of course, are there, but the meteor showers. You have a smaller window, but it's there for more than a few hours.
Right.
You get down into these eclipses, total lunar eclipses are, less than 2 hours normally. And solar eclipses, the total portion is 5 minutes or less.
Right. And you want to be prepared.
You have to be prepared, and there's zero room for error for these. And I don't want to say that it's the most difficult kind of observing, because every kind of astronomy seems to have its own way of being the most difficult.
Right.
Those exoplanet people with the light curves that they follow.
We won't talk about them.
And everything else.
Yeah.
Planetary observing with the extreme magnifications. It's everything. Every part of astronomy has its own hardest part, right? And for solar and lunar eclipses, or just eclipses, or this extends out to the Mercury and Venus transits, which I also cover. Not that we'll have another Mercury transit in 2032, but 10 years.
Right.
You got 10 years for that.
Yeah. And these are the type of things you have to travel for too.
Yes.
Lunar eclipses not necessarily, but solar eclipses, you have to travel.
Right. The lunar eclipses, you can see them on the entire dark side of the planet.
Yep. Whoever sees the moon.
Lunar eclipses are a bit less common than solar eclipses, believe it or not, but more people see the lunar eclipses because, everyone can see a total lunar eclipse on the dark side.
Right.
So
no special equipment needed.
Right.
It's
and
true.
Again, I also just noticed this. There are only total lunar eclipses from 2025 to 2032, as far as I can see.
Really?
That's strange. Huh. Yeah, that's a bit odd.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, you got anything else you want to share before we close this out?
Take a lot of pictures. Make sure you observe. Make sure you report your weather conditions and how you observed. I see a lot of people observing with, you get clouds, and a lot of people say, it's not worth it. I didn't observe anything. Say what your weather was. Say what you were able to see through the adverse weather conditions, and make observations. Try and do the best you can with that.
That's right.
And this is the digital age. We can take 1,000 pictures of nothing and still keep it, and it's great.
That's exactly what I do.
Yeah, I got 900 pictures of the 2017 eclipse.
Yep.
And it was great.
Yeah.
So
pick the best ones.
Take 1 million pictures. Pick out your favorites. Write down what you think is important about your observing conditions, what you were trying to do. For example, the last Mercury transit that happened, I had 3 airplanes go in front of the sun when I was trying to take pictures. 3 airplanes. I missed all
that's not when you want an airplane in front of the sun.
No, it was perfect. It was right next to the transit.
Oh, okay.
It was beautiful. I saw it through the viewfinder, and I tried to push the button and I missed it because they were moving so fast. It was so beautiful. I got 3 chances and I missed them.
Well, keep looking.
I keep trying. I see these, the space station in front of an eclipse.
Oh yeah,
space station in front of. I see this all the time, and I think, oh my gosh, I've seen this with my own eyes, but I can't get lucky enough to get a picture.
There you go. It's crazy.
I'm not one of the luckiest people. I've been clouded out the last 2 total lunar eclipses here.
Oh wow!
Got to see them visually, could not take a picture.
Ugh.
But visually observing them is pretty good.
That's pretty good, yeah.
I still consider that a win.
Yep.
And yes, if nothing else, get some binoculars and view your eclipses. Get some solar filters for your binoculars so you can see these the annular solar eclipse and the partial and the annular. And have a great time.
That sounds good. All right, Keith. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Thanks for having me, and I would like to come back.
You will. We'll go in depth. Yeah, we'll go in depth next year and the year after with the new big eclipses coming up.
Yeah, we have eclipses every 6 months or so with the eclipse season.
Great.
So twice a year podcast, however many.
All right, that works. All right, Keith. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Tim. I'm glad to be here.
Get out there and observe them. We upload a new episode of the Observer's Notebook on the 1st and 15th of every month. You can subscribe to us on iTunes. If you do, please give us a rating and review us. I'd really appreciate it if you did that. You can also listen to us on Apple Radio, iHeartRadio, Soundcloud, Spreaker, Google Play, Stitcher, Amazon Echo, Spotify, and the podcast is also available on our ALPO YouTube channel. You can help support the podcast by donating to it via Patreon. You can give up to $35 a month, where you will receive 1 year's membership to the ALPO and producer credits on the podcast. And with that, I want to thank the producers of this podcast, Steve Siedentop and Michael Moyer, for their generous support of the Observer's Notebook. The link for Patreon, as well as the link for the ALPO, is in the show notes. If you'd like to get a hold of me, my email address is commentman@commentman.net, or be over at Twitter at ObserversNBPod. Until next time, I hope that you always have clear and steady skies. Thanks for listening.